Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you tonight. My first guest, Eli, is a Vietnam vet, and he had an encounter in Minnesota. I believe it was back in 1969, was his first encounter while he was out hunting. And then we'll be talking to Armando. Armando is actually a long-haul truck driver, and he stopped to go pee. He was down in Texas. His dog got out, went running out in the woods, and Armando went after his dog and ended up interrupting a hunt between two of these creatures and got a really good look at both of them. A very fascinating account. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com for your daily blog. You can become a member, get additional shows. If you get a free moment, definitely check it out. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Eli to the show. Eli, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here. And I know you had an encounter, right around the time the Patterson-Gimlin film was, around that time it was being filmed. If you would, just kind of start from the beginning, if you would, kind of tell us what you were doing and walk us into what happened. Is this about, 1969?
Yes, it was November of 69. I had gone up to a place that I'd gone hunting with my dad a few times between Lutsen and Grand Marais, Minnesota. I was going to be going to Vietnam within 2 weeks, and I just wanted to go hunting one more time up to a place my dad and I had gone many times before. And I'd gone up a couple of days early to make a blind. I wasn't a big fan of climbing trees and with those tree stands. And so I built a blind on the ground by taking some galvanized pipe and pounding them in the ground because it hadn't been froze up there yet. And stuck some vertical willow branches in it and weaved some other branches through it to make like a duck blind, actually. And left a couple shooting holes. I'd been carrying that year. I had borrowed it because I didn't have a rifle at that time. A Ruger 44 Magnum, which is a small, short rifle. And no scope on it because up in that area in Minnesota, most of your shots are probably 20, 30 yards because it's so wooded. And the blind was facing almost due north. And to the east was probably an acre or half acre of blackberry bushes and what I used to call, wait a minute, where you walk through them and you get hung up on the thorns and couldn't go anywhere, and you spent half the time trying to get out of the thorns. And to the west side was a cornfield that the DNR had planted. Occasionally they would plant DNR would plant cornfields and wouldn't pick it so the deer could have something to feed on in the wintertime if the snow was real bad. And that was, excuse me, and that was to the west of me. I was just sitting there for about 2 hours and actually kind of in the sun, just relaxing, because to be honest with you, I was quite nervous about going to Vietnam again. So it was just a way to get away and relax. And all of a sudden, I heard something really at the beginning, something coming up the deer trail. But it was really flying up this deer trail. And in Minnesota, in that area, there's a fair amount of moose. And at first I thought it was a moose coming up because of all the noise it was making. But it turned out to be a doe. And the deer ran straight at my camouflage site and made a turn to the east, following the deer trail, then went to the right of my camouflage stand and turned in to where I was sitting. And it just startled the heck out of me, and I didn't know what was going on. This deer's tongue was hanging out. Steam was just rolling off of it. It was all lathered up. The deer came in behind me and not more than 6 to 8 feet away laid down. And I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what was going on. And I hadn't really heard much of Sasquatches or Bigfoots. I guess I never paid attention to it. Even if I had, I don't know if I would have believed. About 2 or 3 minutes went by, and this did sound like a moose coming through that cornfield. And dry corn makes so much noise. And this was in November, so all that corn was dried out. And obviously I didn't have a moose license, and they can get kind of ornery, so I kind of backed up as far as I could, but there was a deer behind me. And then I heard something to the right coming through those thistles and blackberries and raspberries or whatever they were. All of a sudden, all the noise stopped. And I didn't know what was going on. And then the noise from the cornfield started up again, but it wasn't coming at me anymore. It was going parallel to me. And it was, I guess it'd be horizontal to me. And all of a sudden, this gorilla, as far as I knew, stepped out from the cornfield, looked my direction, and stepped right back into the cornfield. And then I heard, I want to call it a whistle or a grunt. I was so stunned, I don't know what I actually heard, to be honest with you. And then that same noise was repeated to my right, and I was simply terrified. I laid down in that little area I had by 44 across my chest and didn't move. I just laid there. And I must have laid there for half an hour, and I kept hearing the one in the cornfield just making all kinds of ruckus. Running back and forth. But the one to my right, on the east side, didn't really move. I seen the top of its head because those willows are the berries or whatever you want to call them back over there with the thorns on it, was about 7.5 or 8 feet tall, and all I could see was the top of a head. I think it was a head at that time. All of a sudden, the one on the left-hand side screamed and took off away from me. And at the same time, the one on my right side took off away from me. And this doe casually got up and walked away. And I thought I was going to have to go empty my drawers.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Strange behavior for a deer, but you tend to hear that a lot in a lot of encounters with hunters. They'll show up and they'll lay down next to a deer stand, which is so bizarre. The one that stepped out that looked like a gorilla, can you describe what you saw from what you remember?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. A lot happened since then. It was dark brown. I'm going to say almost a black, with a little bit of red on the tips of the fur, I guess you want to call it, highlights. And I never really seen the face because it stepped out and stepped right back in. And all I could see it from that point on was the fur kind of sticking out from the cornfield, because it hadn't gone but about a row in, and I could see, a dark object in the cornfield. That's all I could see. And the one on the other side, I never seen that. I just seen the top of a head, which was a brown, and that's all I seen over there.
Let me ask you, what do you think was going on, in your opinion? Do you think they were chasing this deer? I
think they chased that deer out of where its cover was, it ran down the deer trail and turned the corner. And I don't think it knew I was there at first, but it turned to the east and then made another turn to the west, just a matter of a few feet, and came right into my little land or ground blind. I was just totally stunned. I wouldn't shoot a doe. I didn't have a doe license. And I really didn't care if I even harvested a deer. I just wanted to go up north, and I just wanted to get away and try to relax for a few days.
I understand. Weird behavior for a deer. It's almost like the deer know I'm going to run up to this human and I'll be safe. That's outside of everything we know about deer's behavior. Generally, they'll run from you before it to run up, and it's almost like it knew.
To be honest, it's lucky I didn't run over it, trying to run away. But I figured that I'd been over to 9 months, and running was not a good idea. It was stand your ground, and that's what I did. I think they were chasing that doe, and when it came in by me, they got my scent, or they smelled me and stopped and were a little upset. And the one in the corn started running back and forth. I think it was trying to flush that deer out.
Well, let me ask you this, Eli. What did you think you were looking at the time? I mean, here it is, 1969, and you're running into gorillas in Minnesota, or what you described to be a gorilla. I mean, what was going through your mind at the time?
Well, I had heard of Bigfoot and Sasquatch, and initially, it was a gorilla. I don't know how one got there, but as I was just laying there flat on the ground, I went, talking to myself, basically. I said, this has to be what people call Sasquatches or gorillas or Bigfoots. And that's all I knew, other than the fact that I was terrified. Because even with that 44 I had, with the size of this thing, I don't think I could have brought it down. It looked like it was, I liked wrestling. And it looked like it was Andre the Giant standing out there with fur. Just, something like him anyway back then. Just a huge beast. And I was just terrified. And after it was all over with and they went on their way, I packed up my stuff and I went back to Minneapolis.
Yeah, I mean, no one can blame you for that. And it's such a unique encounter. I realize this is 1969, but I've heard many encounters like this. A lot of hunters will say the deer come running right up to them, and the hunters are confused. They're not really sure what's going on. And then moments later, they'll see the thing that's chasing it. Very bizarre. But you go off to Vietnam, and then you come back a couple years later, 4 or 5 years later, and you have another experience. Tell us what happened.
4 of us from where I worked went to, on a Friday, we decided let's go grouse hunting on that Saturday. So we left from work and went up to a town, an area called Deer River, which is in, what county is that? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember what county it is. It's Itasca County. It's central Minnesota, as far as it's about 4 hours away, but it's in the central part of the state. And it's really good grouse country. Both of us were all 4 of us were ex-military. And we decided, well, let's just go ahead and camp out and save some money, because we were just going to hunt for a day and then come back. Well, we went to bed about, crawled into tents about 10:30, 11 o'clock, and we built a big fire. to ward off bears, or if there's any black bears. All there is Minnesota's black bears. I've seen one cougar, I guess, the whole time I've lived in the state, and that was near my home here just about 10 years ago. I crawled in the tents, and the other tent was at a right angle from me, about 15, 20 feet away, and both openings were facing the fire. And I heard something out in the brush. Didn't know what it was. Figured it was a deer or something. I wasn't attuned to hearing biped or whatever. I just heard something out there. And all of a sudden, whatever it was started running. And all of a sudden, my tent was trampled and basically picked up and rolled over. We had the type of tents that weren't staked down. They were just those fiberglass rods that, held them up. And this tent basically took off and rolled us both over. And I crawled out and uncased my shotgun and put 4 rounds in it. I had I believe it was a Benelli at the time. It was either Benelli or a Browning. I can't remember which one it was. And, the guys in the other tent came out. What the hell's going on? And I go, I have no clue what's going on. I said, something just ran over us. I'm assuming it's a bear. And so we stood around and talked for a little bit, and they helped me set the tent back up and crawled back in. But I kept the shotgun loaded and had it, barrel pointed out the opening. But then about 20 minutes after we laid back down, they started hollering. I crawled out as fast as I could, and I looked over towards their tent, and I seen something kind of around the corner from their tent. Their tent had been flipped over too. And in fact, one of the guys was pretty, not badly hurt, but very uncomfortable because he got stepped on. And when I looked out, this all happened a matter of seconds. I just seen something running away, and I fired 3 times. And it was, we were grouse hunting, so I had number 7 birdshot in it. And I figured it was a bear, and I just didn't want it to come back. But I hit it in the backside. I'm sure it was the backside, and it screamed. And we all looked at each other and went, bears don't scream. We sat up the rest of the night, until the first dawn, first light, and we left. I didn't want anything to do with that. And we went over to the area it was at, but it was so dry, and all the leaves were down because it was the fall. And I could see where a freight train had gone through the brush and kicked up the leaves, but there was no footprints or anything like that. I never mentioned to the guys I was with about the first incident. I didn't want them to think I was crazy. This has never been told except to my wife. And it's only people that know this except for the guys I are with. And only one of them are currently still living. That's about it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating account, and I really appreciate that you would take the time to share it here. It makes you wonder if it was, we're just speculating here, Eli, but it makes you wonder if it was like a young one that was coming through and was just kind of screwing with you guys, or because a lot of times in the behaviors I've noticed from interviewing eyewitnesses in situations like what you're in, they will do stuff like this, but it's generally the young ones. You know what I mean?
Would it have been 2 or would it have been 1? One going one direction and the other one later coming the other direction, because I could see, I don't want to say silver, but the back side of it looked shiny. You know what I mean? it kind of, with the fire, it kind of shimmered a little bit.
Are you talking about when you shot it?
Yeah, what I could see. And I probably wasn't the proper thing to do, but I wasn't about to have that thing trample on us again, whatever it was.
Oh, I don't blame you.
I figured bird shots were really not gonna, even the bear, I figured it was a bear. I said bird shots really aren't gonna do any harm to that thing at 20 or 30 yards away.
It's gonna hurt.
Yeah, that's about it though.
Yeah, definitely gonna hurt.
And they had their, it was that time of year they're gonna go into hibernation, and they had, I didn't think at the time, but they had a heavy layer of fat on them, and their fur would have been awful thick at that time too. But the way it went across the top of them and me, it wasn't a bear. After you think about it, bear wouldn't have done that.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think, and then came back. I don't see a bear doing that. And after all this happened, did you talk to your friends that were there? Was there ever a conversation of what the hell was that?
Oh yeah, we talked about it about what it was, and a couple of them mentioned Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and I just basically played dumb. I didn't want to admit that I had an encounter once before. We just talked about what it could possibly, and two of the guys were pretty convinced that it was a Sasquatch or Bigfoot, and the other person didn't really have an opinion. They thought it was a bear, and I didn't think it was a bear, but I wasn't going to say anything else.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And I know you went to Vietnam, you saw a lot of bad things, and I would imagine most that sticks with you in your life. But relating back to this encounter when you guys were, this situation and the one before, did it ever affect you in your life? Did you ever go, I'm never going camping again, I'm never hunting again, screw this?
Well, I've never been a big fan of camping, especially after Vietnam, because I spent close to 2 years in a Quonset hut, which is much more than sleeping in a metal tent. So I've really never gone camping again, unless it was in a tent trailer that my parents used to have, which is, just a tent that's on a frame.
Kind of a pop-up.
But,
yeah,
it was a pop-up. They're not even allowed in Yellowstone and that anymore, because the bears have a tendency to rip the ends of them off. And unless you're in a special area that only tent campers can be in, because they don't want to take a chance of a bear, a grizzly going through there.
Yeah, and I know you've had, over 50 years to really think about this, going back to your first encounter. What do you think that they are? What's your opinion, Eli? I mean, you got to look at two of them. I know it's not a great look, but you got to look at two of them. You kind of experience the behavior in two different encounters. What's your opinion?
I think they're in a species all their own. I don't think they're a human that's changed, or I can't explain what I'm trying to say. I don't think it's a gorilla that's got different genes, or even a human with different genes. I think it's a species all its own, like the gigantic pithecis, I think it was called back then. It's got to be something like that. It's got to be something that still exists, and that there's people in Africa that still say there's dinosaurs out there. What makes them think that there's something like this couldn't still exist from 200,000 years ago, or 50,000 years ago?
Good point.
It's we know so little. I'm a scuba diver. I've dove all over the world, And there's so many things underwater that we don't know about. Oh, and we haven't even looked at all the land in the United States, let alone the world. How do we know what's still there?
So you think it's more of a kind of a natural animal we haven't caught up with?
Yeah, I do. I don't think it's an alien or anything like that. I think it's something that's left over.
Yeah, you could be right. Let's hope you're right. It really, it's one of those fun questions I like to ask because there's really no wrong answer because no one knows. As you brought up, I mean, there's so many places around this world we haven't even stepped foot on. And even places in the Pacific Northwest, people haven't stepped foot on. They like to think they have, but I guarantee there's places out here where no man has been, out in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean?
I've always wanted to go there, or go out to Washington State in that area. Closest I got was California in the service.
Yeah.
But after my 2 incidents, I've wanted to know more. But I didn't want to say, hey, George, hey, Fred, let's go to Washington State and learn more about these things. And I just never had the courage to ask anybody to do it. And until I started listening to your show, I didn't know anybody was out there really interested in it.
Yeah, the encounters happen more than most people might think. It's and I'm thankful that people like yourself will come forward and share what happened to them. Because I think it helps the next person coming along going, well, maybe I'll talk about what happened to me. And that's kind of the whole point of the show. You know what I mean?
It's been 40 years, roughly for me. And, but I can still see the one in the cornfield where it walked out, looked in my direction, then stepped back. I can still see it. I never had a real good look at it, but I can still see it standing there, and knowing that 44 only held, I think it was 4 or 5 rounds, and like the old Ruger 1022s, the rotary clip, and I only had like 4 rounds or something in it. And I thought, if that thing comes at me, I don't know if I can knock it down. I was going to aim for the knees or something like that, the legs, because without the legs, you can't move. And it might have given me a chance to get away. I'm sorry, but I'm going to sacrifice that doe.
Yeah, well, thank God it didn't come to that, and it is kind of weird how they kept their distance from you, and almost like the doe knew, I'm going to run to a human and,
I don't know if it knew I was there immediately until it turned that corner, because I had a really good ground line. Maybe it was just trying to hide like I was. Only I was trying to hide from their species.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, it's a fascinating account, though, Eli, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on, and God bless you. Thank you for your service. I know that's something that's very cliche to say, but, I mean, you got to love the heart of a volunteer, you know what I mean?
I'm really surprised of all the people that will stop me, and I'll have a Vietnam hat on or something like that, or a vest or something on from combat. And they'll stop me and shake my hand. I went to Vegas one time and I couldn't walk 10 feet without somebody stopping me to shake my hand. I finally had to take my hat off. I couldn't get anywhere.
Yeah, you shouldn't be surprised like that. That's how we should treat our veterans. I know it's not how you guys got treated when you came back from Vietnam, but war is ugly. I don't think anyone really loves war. And I've said that before in the past. I disagree with I can go through every war and disagree with every single war we've been involved in. But having said that, you got to respect a guy that will put a uniform on, stand a post, and do his job. And it's a volunteer. And I mean, God bless you. No wonder people should shake your hand when you walk down the street. You've earned it.
I just did what my country asked me to do. And I was a
Yeah.
volunteer since I was in the Navy, so I wasn't drafted. I had health issues, so I couldn't have been drafted, so I joined anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Well, God bless you, man. God bless
thank
you
you.
for doing it. And again, thank you for your service, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
I hope I didn't sound too flustered, but I was pretty nervous here.
No, you did great. You did great. Thanks again, Eli. Well, I want to welcome Armando to the show. Armando, thanks for coming on.
No problem, Wes. I got to get this off my chest. I've only told one other person, and I think about it every day.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you being here, and I know you're a truck driver, and your encounter took place in Texas. If you would you mind just starting from the beginning and tell us what happened? What did you see?
All right. Let me just start out by saying that I'm originally from New Jersey, and you would have to be living under a rock not to have heard about the Sasquatch video. That's the most famous one, you know. And you know, I'm from a city which I've never been camping, and I've never done anything like that, you know, in my life. And anyway, like I said, I've seen the video, and I never really, you know, I never really paid much attention to the woods or anything like that. And anyway, I'm a owner operator truck driver, and I was on my way to Dallas, Texas, from New Jersey, to buy a trailer, you know, so I can continue making more money. And I was 20 West, going on I-20 West, and I have my dog with me. His name is Buddy, little Jack Russell. Really cool dog, you know, keeps me occupied. And I was passing this stretch of road right along Longview, Texas. Okay, I remember correctly because, you know, once I went back and researched everything where I was and what happened, I was crossing Longview, but on I-20. And, okay, in I-20, west and east was divided by a long patch of wood that divides the west and the east side, you know. Anyway, okay, so a lot of times when it's called bobtailing, you know, where you don't have the trailer with you. And I'm able to pull over on the side of the highway, and it just happened to be a patch where I can pull over, and, you know, I had to go take a leak. And I let my dog out, you know, so the dog can go and do what it does, you know. Normally he likes to run around, and, you know, sometimes he'll bring me back a mouse or something like that, a little lizard or something. And anyway, I put a little bell on his neck. It was around the time was around 5:30 in the morning. It was a little bit chilly. This happened it was St. Patrick's Day, March 17, I think it was. And anyway, I put a little bell on his neck, so when he goes into the wooded area, I can hear and I can actually sense where he is, you know, because he likes to wander around all over the place. And okay, so then, you know, I let him out of the truck. I get out, and I'm just hanging outside, you know, taking a look at the stars and stuff like that. And then I see he went into the woods, and I tell him, all right, come back real quick. He understands me. Little time went by, and then I started to notice that there was no sound. It was off the highway, you know. I had walked into the wooded area a little bit from my truck, you know, just to get away from the highway a little bit. And I noticed that there was no sounds. And to me, I was like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here? No crickets, no morning birds. But it was like 5:30 in the morning, you know. And the sun was going to be coming up pretty soon. There was like a little tiny cold mist in the air, you know. I said, what's going on? Nothing. I can't hear anything. And then I could hear my dog's little bell, you know, ringing as he's going through the woods. And then all of a sudden, I felt like this feeling that something is watching me. I got chills in my spine, and I was looking around, and I was like, what the hell is that? And then I kept like looking around, nothing. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't hear my dog's bell anymore. And I said, hey, buddy. He wouldn't answer me. He'll normally bark. He'll bark at me and let me know. And then all of a sudden, I heard like animals running through the woods, like a little different, like a little pack of animals scurrying through the woods. You can hear them clearly. And I was like, what the hell is that? And then I could hear what sounded like pigs to me, like that type of pig sound, And I said, okay, man, I know that in Texas there's wild boars. And I've ran into them when they cross the roads, while I've been out in Texas on other trips. They cross the road, like it's nothing. They'll cross the road in the middle of the night and they want you to get out of their way. But anyway, it was pigs. I could hear pigs. And then they stopped for a minute. And then again, they started running really fast again. And then I heard something like a squeal coming from one of the pigs. I could hear it super loud, like something had grabbed a hold of this pig, and it was going off. And then I was like, "Oh my God, my dog! Buddy is getting bitten by the pigs or attacked by the pigs." And I started calling out to him, "Buddy, hey, come here!" And he wouldn't answer me, and I couldn't hear a bell. So then I got closer and closer, and I started creeping into the woods where I saw Buddy go in. And it was about, I kept walking and walking, maybe like 30 yards into the woods. And then, Buddy, come here. Hey, nothing. I couldn't hear nothing. And then I could hear the pig again, squeal again, one last time, a loud squeal, super loud squeal. And then the other pig's running. And then it was like a whack, and then it stopped, like he was done. Like I was like, oh my God, either Buddy grabbed him by the nuts or something, because Buddy's really tiny. Buddy's tiny, and the pig stopped squealing. And I'm saying to myself, that can't be Buddy because pigs are a lot bigger than him. And then I said, hey, come here, where are you? And he would not answer me, man. I was like, oh my God, they killed my dog. And okay, so I kept walking and walking, and I finally heard a little whimper from him, And I said, hey, what are you doing? Come here, where are you? And I saw him, and there he was standing, and he was looking straight up, like frozen, looking up at a tree. And I said, come here, what are you doing? What are you doing? And at the same time, my lights, I shut the truck off, but I leave my lights on so I can shine them into the woods towards where I'm heading and where Buddy is heading, And I have some powerful fog lights, and I have some good lights that can shine through the leaves and some trees, So then the light was shining on him and part of the tree. And I said, come here, what are you doing? And I'm looking around for the pigs. And I'm going, where the hell are these pigs? And then I said, are you all right? And then he would not move. He wouldn't move, and he kept looking up into the tree. And then when I looked up into the tree, oh, my, I'm getting chills right now. There was like a monkey, giant monkey-looking thing crouching on a branch that was broken, maybe like 15 foot up on the tree, maybe a little bit more. But I can see it because of the light of the moon and my light sort of shining into the woods. I can see the bottom half of it, and I can make out the top. It was moving its arms, and I was like, what the hell? To myself, I didn't say it out loud. I was just quiet. And my dog got behind me, and he started whimpering a little bit right in between my legs. And then I said, oh, my Lord, what the hell is that? And then it made a loud noise and was pointing away from me. I was facing it, but it was giving its back to me while I was on the branch. And then it pointed, and it made it sound like this, which I go back in time, Wes, and I remember everything clearly. I recall it. It made it sound like this, like that. And I was like, it sounded like rock. And then all of a sudden, in front of it, maybe like another 15 feet in front of it, the woods started to, you could hear it like crashing. And out of nowhere, in front came out this other looking creature. Huge gorilla man looking being. And I was like, my heart just started pumping so fast. And I got down. I grabbed my dog, and I was hiding in between some bushes. And I was like, oh, my Lord, what? And the lights were hitting it. My lights were hitting that being on the bottom half of its feet and a little bit of its belly, a little bit. And I was like, oh, my Lord. I said, what is that? And then the one that was on the tree said something else. It sounded like some weird mumbling. And then the one that was coming out of the woods had something in its arm. And then as it moved a little bit closer, the light started going up and up its body. And I could see that it was a huge looking ape man, giant. And it had the pig in its arm. And that's the pig that I was hearing squealing, I'm guessing, you know? And anyway, it started to move forward and forward. And then all of a sudden, from the wooded area that divides the highways, the east and the west side, I heard a chirping sound, which sounded like this. And I was like, and then my dog looked that way, and I looked that way, and the creature that was on the tree turned around, and I can see a little bit of its face, and look that way too, and then look down and look towards us. And I was like, oh my God, they spotted us. They spotted us. And she said to him something. She said to the big, it was a male. I'll tell you why in a little bit. And the one that was upstairs was a female. I found out later on. Anyway, she said something to him, which sounded like something like that. And then she jumped down from the tree, almost 20 feet up, Wes. And when this thing hit the floor, I can feel it. It was like, boom. And then she went towards him and sort of like told him something. And then he started looking my way. And then she screamed. She did it like a loud towards me. And I felt it. I felt like chills down my spine. And it felt like I got hit. And I just completely froze completely, and I could not even move. And then she started to like look towards where the wooded area was, where the chirp came from, and she took off. I've never seen anything move that fast. This thing took off, and it was on two legs. It was like a big monkey running faster than anything I've ever seen. And then she disappeared into the wooded area going that way, and he just kept staring at me, and I could see he was staring at me because the lights were hitting it, and it had red eyes. It had like this red, almost like the same color of like the back of a car, you know, the lights in the back of a car.
Yeah.
And I can see that it blinks, and then it started moving closer to me. And he was like, maybe like I said, I was in the woods like 30 yards in. He was like another 20 yards away from me. And the wooded area is not completely wooded, but there's little patches of woods around. And then he began to move closer to me. And my dog just started going, like, let's go. And finally, he got so close, I got to see the entire figure. And it was, oh, my God. Oh, man. This thing was like 3 times a bodybuilder. The legs, I can see that his feet, I can see from the feet all the way up to his chest and a little bit of his chin. And I could see the red eyes. He had legs that they were like tree trunks, muscles, both of them like solid blocks of muscles. But he had a skinny waist. He had a skinny waist, and it wasn't like a V shape, but he was bulky on the top, and all of a sudden it opened up to a massive, like a huge boulder-looking chest. and his shoulders were, oh my God, that's one thing that you could notice the most. His shoulders were so wide, so big, and he had long arms. His arms were hanging past his knees. He had he had the pig in one arm, and then the other hand just hanging past his knee. Like his elbow was hanging past his knee. And right away I was like, my God, what am I looking at? And then it was dripping water. I can see, because of the weather, it was a little bit cold. It was dripping water. I can see from the lights, the shadow of the light hitting them, the light itself. It was dripping water, and the pig was dripping water, and it was steaming. Like in the wintertime when you're running around and it's cold and the steam comes off your body.
Yeah, when you're sweating.
It was like giant steam coming off of both of them, and water dripping. And then I was already like standing up a little bit, but he can see me because I'm looking up. I'm looking up at him, and he was like in a little bit of a cliff, not too big, but he was going up a cliff. Where I could see him. He was standing, going upwards from where I was. So anyway, he screamed at me. When he screamed at me, he moved up a little bit more, and I can see his face now. And he opened his mouth. When he opened his mouth, this roar, lion tantrum scream came out of him that knocked me backwards. It knocked me backwards like I moved backwards, and it actually helped me knock me even more backwards. And it was something like the way she screamed, but even louder, like a loud. And it lasted maybe like 10 seconds. And I was like, oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord, what? No. I started saying no. No. I was screaming it, no. And my dog took off. He took off. And I normally leave the door of my truck open so then I can have quick access to the truck. When I come back, I leave it open. I leave the radio on sometimes. But anyway, my dog is so tiny, he has never been able to jump in the truck the way that he did this time. And I know that he jumped in the truck because I found him inside the truck later on. He has never been able to do that until that day. And anyway, he took off. And then all of a sudden, this thing stopped and sort of like his lips curled, and I can see his teeth. I can see the nails on his feet. It was full of hair. His whole body was full of hair, maybe like 3-inch, 4-inch hair, And he was like a brown, dark brown, grayish. He had gray hair around his neck, like a part of his neck was gray, and he had like a nice manicured gold teeth. I was like, what the hell is this? And then he moved up more, a little bit more. And that's when I was like, he's going to come at me. And I said, no. And he screamed at me one more time. And he's still holding the pig in his hand. This pig was a big pig. This was a wild boar, black, with a tusk and everything. I can clearly see him. He had his mouth open and his tongue was out. And this guy had probably just choked him and broke his neck when I was hearing all that squealing. And he moved up a little bit more, and he started to like sniff the air and like curl his teeth, almost like the monkeys do, and then he started to sniff the air, sniffing the air around. And then he sort of like he hunched over and looked to the left and looked to the right, and he was swaying a little bit back and forth. And I was like, oh my God, he's getting ready to come after me. And I was frozen, whereas I could not move for my life. I was like, go, move, and I couldn't move. He had little fangs, little canines, like we do, but I guess bigger than ours, because this thing was a monster. This thing had to be, from later on, and going back and looking at the situation, the size of the trees, this thing was about 8 feet tall, wide and bulky and strong, solid. and his teeth and his toenails and his nails in his hand were like a dark greenish, yellowish looking, dirty yellowish green nails, and his teeth were yellow because I could see them shining in the light. They were yellow, and he opened his mouth. He had a mouth that was like from ear to ear. He opened up his. You know how when a big gorilla opens his mouth and shows you his fangs?
Yeah.
It was something like that when he did like if we do a yawn, but 6 times the width of our yawn. It was so big, and his tongue was pink. It was a pink tongue. I can see it. I'll never forget it. And then he sort of like did like a to me, and I was like, oh no, I'm leaving. I said I'm leaving, and I also said to him, I said, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to hurt you. And I don't know if he understood or whatever, but that's what I said. And I don't even know how that came out of me, but I said it. And then he did another scream to me again. And that's when I said, oh, Lord, that's enough. I'm out of here. And I started backing out. And he moved towards me a little bit more. And he kept smelling the air, and he kept looking to side. And I'm guessing he was looking at my hands, because he would duck down and he would look side to side and look towards my hands. And then I was showing him my hands like this, and then I realized, I said, oh man, this thing is looking at my hands. And I didn't know what the hell this was, but I understood it. It's looking at my hands. And then I was like, no, I'm leaving. And I started backing out. And then as he kept coming forward a little bit, and he was still like, as I was backing out, he was still like a good distance from me. The lights hit him even more, and I could see him even clearer. His head was a small head. It wasn't big, but it was like a rounded, not the conical that a lot of people have been saying, because I've been listening to your show, and I've never heard your show until I told somebody my story. Another truck driver from in the country, and they told me, you saw a booger. And I said, a what? He said, you saw a booger. And I said, a booger. And he said, a Sasquatch. And I said, what, really? And then it came to me, the video of Patty. It came to me, boom. And I said, oh my God, that's what holy shit, that's what it looks like. And then, anyway, he had like a rounded head, and it wasn't that big compared to the size of that body. He had muscles that no bodybuilder could ever have, no matter how many steroids these people take, Wes. I can see the muscles through the light and the hair, the wind was going towards him. I couldn't. There was no smell. You know, like people say there was a smell. There was no smell because the wind was going towards him. I wasn't going upwind. I was going downwind. And he had a huge scar on his leg, Wes. He had a scar on his thigh that when the wind was hitting it, you can see the hair move. And you know how when you have a scar that it looks kind of shiny because it's healed over,
yeah,
and it looks like a tight patch of skin from the scar. His scar that scar was about 7-8 inches long. And I put 2 and 2 together later on. I'm saying he had that big scar on his leg. Maybe he'd been fighting these pigs for a long time, and one of them finally got him, but it healed over. And that's what it looked like to me, like if somebody took a knife and cut him in the thigh, and then it healed over, you know? Okay, so I'm backing out. And I can hear my dog inside. I could hear him from inside the truck. He's screaming. And I was like, I'm coming. And I'm backing out. And all of a sudden I heard on the other side where the female, how I know it was a female, because when she got close to him and the light sort of hit it, I could see that it had breast. It was a female. And it didn't have the breast like the Patty video, like long, big hanging. No, these were like tight, muscly looking breasts. They weren't really hanging breasts, but they were like solid breasts. And she was covered with hair, and she was like a a little bit lighter brown than he was. Almost like coffee, like a light brown coffee. Like when you put milk in the coffee, it was that kind of brownish color that I could see. And okay, so I heard something going on in the wooded area in between the highways, and it sounded like a like they were talking to each other. And I later on I figured it out. I said that little chirp was probably a baby that they left while they were hunting. And then as I started walking backwards, I was like, I'm leaving. And I said to myself, I better get out of here because this guy's going to grab me. And he could have just taken a couple of steps, Wes, and been right on me and destroyed me. But he did not. He did not. I felt real scared in the beginning, but as he kept sniffing the air and just walking slowly towards me, he gave me a nod, like move, like go. And that's what I got, like go, get out of here before my wife comes back, or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what I sensed from it. And I was like, I'm leaving, and I kept backing out, and my truck was right behind me. So I'm walking backwards. My truck is behind me, and the truck is shining the light on both of us. And he wasn't completely onto the highway. I was onto the highway already, and I was about to start walking towards my truck, but I said, just keep walking backwards. Keep walking backwards. Don't give him your back. And then he stepped out to the side of the road. He stepped out, and I could see it clearly now. My lights were hitting it dead on, man. And this thing started covering his eyes. Like the lights were actually bothering him a little bit. And then he looked over to where the female and I guess the baby was, and he did like a like that. And then she answered with a I remember clearly, Wes, the sounds are in my head. Then he stopped. He sort of just stopped, and I can see he moved his arm, and I can see the pig. He picked up the pig to show me the pig. And he picked it up like this, right by the back of the pig's neck, and he showed it to me. And I was like, I'm not here for the pig. I'm not here for the pig. And I backed up, and I finally jumped in the car, and he's still standing there. He's still standing right there, and I can hear the baby and the mom, I guess, still doing a little chattering between themselves. I got in the truck, I slammed my door, and I had to back out because he was standing in front. He was standing in front of the truck, maybe like I said, maybe like 25, 30 feet from the truck. So I turned the truck on. When I turned the truck on, he sort of like got a little startled, and he went, and I said, I'm leaving. I kept saying I'm leaving, and my dog is inside the truck, and I'm looking for him, and I'm going, and he was underneath the blankets in my bed. You know, we have beds, and he was underneath the blankets, going off, and I said, we're leaving, and then I started to back out slowly, and I finally put the truck on the highway, and for some reason, I-20 is not a lonely road, Wes. But that day, there was really not too many people around, man. There was not people around. Maybe another car went by the other side that I think I heard, shoo, but that was about it. And no sound. There was no sound in that area. And I backed out, and he finally sort of put the pig back down where he had it, and he ran across the road real quick towards the wooded spot where I guess his family was. I backed out far enough where I could say, where the hell did they go? I could not see them anymore. And then I started moving forward. And you know, those gears are they're short. And I couldn't move fast. You have to go second, third, fourth, and you go slowly until you hit like sixth gear. Then you start moving pretty quick. Slowly. And then I kept looking, and then I seen them again. They were inside the woods, but I can see from his height, I can see his head. And he was looking right at me, and I could see him. And I couldn't see his eyes at this time because I guess the light wasn't shining on him no more. but I can see the reflection of his head, you know. And then I kept driving, and as I looked through my mirror, kept driving, I looked through my mirror. He stepped out a little bit onto the road with the pig in his hand still, just to sort of like peek around and to see if I was really leaving. And then I started driving away slowly, and my heart was pumping. I was so scared. My dog pissed himself. He had piss all over him. Well, oh man, I don't blame him. I don't blame him, my poor guy. So I took off, and then I was heading towards Dallas. I pulled over, man. I pulled over at a rest area, and I had to compose myself and say, what the hell just happened to me? Nobody's going to believe that I just saw this thing. And it was two of them. It was a male and a female. And I'm guessing they had a baby hidden in between the big patch of wood. And he signaled them that I was there. And that's what I felt, that something was watching me. The baby was watching me, but I got the feeling that something was watching me. And it had to be the baby, because at that time, I hadn't walked into the woods yet when I got that feeling. I never thought about Sasquatch, you know, and it never really fazed me. Until that day, now I'm fascinated by these beings. I'm fascinated, Wes. And then the guy who told me about the booger told me about your show. He said, go online and go check this show out. Go to YouTube and check them out. And he said, Sasquatch Chronicles. I wrote it down, and I started listening since like the last year and a half. But this happened on St. Patrick's Day. I won't forget it was St. Patrick's Day. Wes, I'm from New Jersey, and we tell it like it is, man. And I'm not a woods person, and I don't claim to be a hunter. I've never hunted. I've never been any of those people. But I know what I saw, man. I know that they exist. And I remember hearing a story about another guy from Longview who told the story, the same area, because I got to research if in that area there was Sasquatch, and there was another guy from Longview who I think he said that he hit one with a car. And then later on he told his father, said, what the hell happened to the car? And he said, I hit a deer. And he didn't tell his father the story. But when he called in and he told the story, he said that he hit a Sasquatch with the car. And then I started thinking, I started saying, could this be the same Sasquatch? And the scar on his leg was the scar from him being hit by the car? You know, and I just wondering. But that Longview area, there is a lot of woods around that area, especially the part of I-20 where I was going through. There's a lot of woods out there and a lot of wild animals.
Yeah, and you know, the account, Armando, it's fascinating that the female was up in the tree. How big do you think she was compared to him? You said he was about 8 feet.
Yes, because when she walked up next to him, and he was crouching down until he finally stood up a little bit and showed me his whole chest and body and showed me the pig. She was probably like, when she came up to sort of mumble something to him, she had to be like at least 7 feet tall, because he was bigger than she was. He was like at least another foot bigger. And how I know how big they really were, because I didn't get the guts to go back until like 3 months ago. I went back to the same area and I pulled over because I looked it up on my because every time you park the truck, it's logged into the GPS. You know where you are, the coordinates, and all of that. I have it set up that way. And I looked up the coordinates and I stopped in the same spot, and I remember seeing the same woods. And then I went into the area where I last seen them, and I looked up at the tree where she was. The tree was up, and the branch that was broken, that she was up like 20 feet up in the air, man, and jumped down like it was nothing, like they do it all the time. And from the size of where his head was, and the backdrop, he had to be all of 8 feet, monster, huge. And I couldn't really see his ears. I couldn't see his ears. I saw his head, but his ears were like hidden by hair. He had like a nice manicured goatee. And he didn't have long hair, you know, like a mullet or nothing like that. He had just short hair all the way down, covering up to his forehead. And around his eyes, there was no hair. around, like a whole circle around his eyes, and they were like sunken deep, and he had a protruding eyebrow. You can see it was bone. It was solid bone. And then around his nose, there was no hair. He didn't have hair on his nose. And then around his lips, his mouth was really wide. When he opened up his mouth, I was like, "Oh my God, look at the size of that thing!" And he had no hair around his, on his lips, but everything else. He had a mustache, and he had a goatee, and he had a full hair around his cheeks, and the hair from his neck down to like the crevice of the chest was longer. The hair was a little bit longer, and he had a gray patch coming down the side of his chest right here from his shoulder down. He had a gray hair patch. And anyway, Wes, I've only told that one other person, man, and I've been afraid to tell even my wife. My wife doesn't know.
Well, I'm really glad that you shared it. You know, it is a fascinating account. I hear a lot of them in Texas going after wild pigs. I mean, I've talked to many hunters who've seen them run down pigs. And I want to ask you, when you were looking at the face, did the face look more human-like, or did it look more like a non-human primate, like a gorilla or a monkey, or how would you describe that face?
His body was like a man gorilla, solid, wide, super strong bodybuilder gorilla. But his face was not a gorilla face. He had a nose that looked like an Aborigine nose. You know, like when you look at an Aborigine guy, he has that wide nose, didn't have a long bridge. It was wide nose, like sunken, like somebody punched him, you know? But it was that type of nose. And his skin, I won't forget his skin. His skin was like a leather gray. And it was like grayish, like wrinklish leather. Yeah, gray leather. That's what it looked like to me. And his teeth were like blocks, like ours. His teeth were like square, yellow teeth. And he did have fangs. He had canine teeth, but they were like ours. Like not that big, like a dog or nothing. He had the canines, but like maybe the same size as ours, but in his size. And his tongue was pink. When he opened that big mouth, I saw that tongue. He had a pink tongue. And the sound he made was, oh my God, it was like an amplifier hitting me. And Wes, I haven't told you this. That same night, when I would try to go to sleep, I couldn't go to sleep because I was sick. I felt I felt weird. I felt anxious, and like my stomach was turning, and I felt like something was like pulling my guts, like somebody was pulling my guts, man. Like oh, what is this crazy feeling? And I couldn't sleep. I could not sleep at all, and I was like that for almost 2 days, where I lost sleep, and I just felt sick, and not nauseous, not something that would make me puke, but just like a weird sick. My stomach was hurting me, and my knees were weak. Like my knees were like weak. Like I could walk, like it was hurting me, you know. And I started saying, "What the hell just happened to me?" And then later on, as I researched, you know, and I listened to some of the accounts on your show, that they have the infrasound, and I guess I got hit with that thing solid. Because when that monster screamed at me, and I don't even want to call him a monster because I think he was pretty cool with me. He let me go. He could have killed me. He could have easily killed me, and she could have easily killed me. Because the way that these things move so fast, when she took off to the woods, I was like, oh my God, it was like a blur, like choo. I said, holy, that thing could have grabbed me so fast and totally destroyed me. And there was nothing I could have done about it.
Why do you think that they didn't harm you?
This is what I was thinking later on. I said, you know, I stumbled onto a hunt. They were hunting, and she was up in the tree signaling him as he was chasing when the sounds that I heard of the animals running, the pigs running, was him running the pigs around, and she was sort of like guiding him when she was doing the rook, rook. She was telling him now, there, grab him, or something like that, you know. So they were hunting, and she was coordinating the hunt from the top of the tree, as for him to go to the exact spot where she was pointing and letting him know, right there he is, he's coming, or something like that. And they were hunting, and then later on, I figured that I might have become a challenger for him, a rival for his meal, and he wasn't having it. When he screamed at me, it was like, this is my meal, and he showed me the pig. The pig was about 200 pounds, Wes. This was a big pig. And he held it up like if you grabbed a jug of water. He picked it up like nothing. That's what I thought. I said they were hunting, and I happened to come across them. They hid the baby, and they hunted, and then I came across them. How she didn't hear me, because I snuck up on the dog because they were preoccupied, and they were maybe like 30, 40, maybe 40 feet, 50 feet from me, you know. I'm not good with distance, you know. But anyway, there was steam coming off his body, man. That blew me away. The steam that was coming off his big body was crazy, and the pig was steaming also. And his breath, I could see his breath, like, you know, when it's cold, when the cold air comes out of your breath, I can see that a lot, and I can hear him breathing like heavy breaths, like like that type of breathing. And she did the same thing. She was like, oh, and then she screamed at me too. You know, she screamed at me first, and I felt hers, but not like his. His was like knocked me backwards, that I almost stumbled and fell backwards when that happened.
Thank God they didn't harm you, Armando. I mean, you're in a very...
When he nodded at me, Wes. He nodded at me. I swear to you, he nodded at me like when somebody says go, and that's what he was nodding at, like get out of here, you know. And I realized that he let me go, because he could have just put that pig down and grabbed me like it was nothing. And I would have been dead right there on the spot. I'm lucky I didn't get a heart attack from this thing.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. What do you think that they are, Armando? What do you think that these creatures are? I mean, you got a good look at two of them, and the account's fascinating. There's a lot to unpack from the behavior, but what is your honest opinion as far as what you think these things are?
After doing some research, and I've seen the video of Patty, they weren't as bulky as Patty. You know, the female was like trim, like solid, you know, not bulky. He was bulky in the chest and not really thick waist. You know, he didn't have that Patty waist that she had, this thick buttocks. He wasn't like that. He was just solid, like a built bodybuilders, even way stronger than that. But I think that these are beings that have been here for a long time, that the natives have been talking about forever, and people have been making fun of them. You know, the natives have known about them, and professionals have ran into them, you know. There's been accounts of, I think it was Roosevelt who talked about them, and other famous people, you know, professional police officers and hunters who have said, it's like a monkey, man. But I don't think I don't think it's a complete monkey. I think they're a hybrid between maybe a human and some other being that might not even be from Earth, you know, and was left here for. That's what I figure, that it might be a being that has been here so long, way before us, that was placed on the planet and left here to survive and I guess populate the planet, you know, as much as they could. And little by little, I think our government is going to have to let us know the truth about these creatures, these beings, because they are beings. They communicate. They're all communicating. They weren't just, they were talking to each other. And now that I've done my research and I look around, there's a lot of things going on Like I remember back in the day, the $5 million man, the $5 million man fought Sasquatch. I remember that came out, and the Boggy Creek came out. I think a little bit before that, Boggy Creek movie, and then they made a couple of other Bigfoot movies, and then now you got Jack Link's messing with Sasquatch. So I think they're throwing little by little, feeding the people to get you used to a Sasquatch. There's a lot of cartoon movies now that kids are watching. Son of Bigfoot. There's like 3 or 4 movies that are out in the theaters right now about Sasquatch. And then you have Harry and the Hendersons. I think little by little, they're going to soon have to let us know that there is another being on the planet like us.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Do you still stop and go pee in the woods like you used to, or did you kind of quit doing that?
No, man, you know something, man? I feel bad about this. My dog refused to get in the truck for months and months after that. He would not get in the truck. And it's my buddy. I'm like, come on, you coming with me? And he would just run away from the truck. He's like, he remembers, and he probably smelled them because he's got better smelling than I do. But he would not get in the truck. For almost 6 months, my dog would not come with me, man. Until I finally got him little by little. I took some short little trips, and he would always jump on the window and look into the woods and keep looking around and looking around and looking at me and looking around and looking at me. Like to say, you're not taking me back there again, are you? It's funny, but yeah, he wouldn't go into the truck, man. And I felt bad. I was like, I don't have another dog with me, my buddy with me. But he finally got back in the truck. But now I would not stop and take a leak on the side of the woods again. Like when I went back to that area to take a look again, it was daytime. It was daytime. I would not go at night. It was daytime, and I looked around real quick. I went and I took a look, and I researched, and I said, oh, look at the height. This is this, and that. And that was about it. I got in my truck. I wasn't even there, not even 15, 20 minutes. I was gone. I looked around for footprints, but it was already later. It was way later. Way later. There was no footprints, man, and nothing else around. But I'm guessing that is part of their territory, that Longview area where there's a lot of pigs and deer and all animals, that they like to hunt.
Yeah, it could be. It definitely could be. I get many accounts from Texas, and it's the same type of behavior. They're chasing hogs. I'm just surprised that you got out of there with your head on, because you got in between them and the food, and then the female was there, the male was there. I mean, what an encounter. Really, what an encounter, Armando. It's one of those things that you'll never forget. I don't know if you were hit with infrasound or if it was fear, an adrenaline dump, where your legs are shaking and your body's just kind of reacting to that adrenaline dump, or if it's actual infrasound. I don't know. But I felt
sick. I felt sick for almost 2 days, Wes. And it was a weird feeling, like if you go down a roller coaster, I kept getting that feeling in my stomach, like churning, like I could barely eat. I didn't want to eat, and I had trouble sleeping, from the feeling that I had.
Which is normal. I think that's pretty normal to feel that way. It's an amazing account, Armando. I really appreciate that you take the time to come on and share it. I know you haven't shared it with many people, and I know you're on the road. Please be safe while you're on the road. But thank you again for coming on.
And I appreciate that, Wes, and I love your show, man. You're actually letting people vent out like me. I've been wanting to tell somebody, and then I've been listening to, when I'm on the road, I'll put on your show in the morning or at nighttime, before I go to sleep, with the music that at the end of the music. Oh man, it puts me to sleep so nice. I like listening to your shows. What was I going to say? Every time I'm out there, man, I'm looking into the woods, and I'm careful. I don't pull over on the side of the road like that while I'm bobtailing no more. but I've been wanting to tell somebody because it's been driving me crazy. I think about it all the time, and especially when you're on the road, all you see is woods, especially at night. When you see a little eye shine, I'm like, oh Lord, keep going, keep going, keep. So.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Well, keep me up to date. Let me know if you have any other run-ins while you're out there on the road. I know you're long haul, so let me know if anything else pops up out there, will you?
Oh my God! Well, I look all the time. I look, but I'm going so fast that I couldn't tell you if I saw another one or not. But this time when I pulled over there, that's going to live with me forever. And I wrote it down. I wrote down everything that I saw as much as I could recall. And I don't think I left anything out, man. It was just, but, I feel lucky, too, at the same time. And I got to see this being. I feel lucky that I'm one of the few who can actually say, I've seen them. And if the government ever says, here they are, then they'll say, Armando, man, you were right. Holy cow, I'm sorry for freaking not believing you. But I haven't told too many people, only one or two other people, and not even my wife, man. My wife is not a believer in that.
Yeah, well, I'm honored that you'd come on here. Thank you again.
Yeah, Wes. Thank you for actually hearing my story, and I love your show, Wes. Keep up the good work, man.